Hello everybody, welcome to the United Stands. I'm Mark Goldbridge and this is your latest Manchester United news. And there's a lot to get into tonight as INEOS back Ruben Amorim with no intention to sack Amorim. Xavi is waiting for his opportunity in the Premier League at Manchester United, even without European football. And we've got some very interesting comments from an ex-Manchester United player about what is going on at Manchester United. And more importantly, we'll be reacting to the people who really matter the most, your opinions on what is going on at Manchester United. Because I tell you what, I think we're down, are we 14th, 15th in the league now? I find it fascinating that INEOS are coming out backing the manager so rigidly, but then I wouldn't say, as much as I find it fascinating, I wouldn't say I'm surprised about it, and I'll explain why as well. Before we get into all of that though, remember we are sponsored by Boohoo Man on the show tonight. We've got a bit of trivia for you, but this is a very special sponsor because you're running out of time. Boohoo Man, you can get all your clothing, gym wear, everything you want. Links in the description. Scan the QR code. You can get 10% off with the code Goldbridge on top of everything else. So if there's a 50% discount, you can use that and get an extra 10% off with the code Goldbridge. Underwear, gym wear, Netflix and chill wear, five-a-side wear, they've got the lot. Coats, socks, pants, t-shirts, jumpers, the lot. Check it out at boohooman.com and use the code Goldbridge. But on top of that, we have a brilliant offer from Boohoo Man exclusively for you. You can win an £800 voucher to spend at Boohoo Man. One of you is going to win it. All you've got to do is scan the QR code and we will announce the winner in early October. The registration date is September the 30th. So you've got 2 days to enter the competition. Link in the description or go through the scanning the QR code. Also, if you want to get some stuff before then, use the code Goldbridge at boohooman.com. So, before we start the show, can you guess the bit of trivia from Boohoo Man? I was born on May 7th, 65 in Belfast. 1965. I started my professional career and made my senior debut for Manchester United in 82, being the youngest player since Duncan Edwards to play for the club. Scored 47 goals and 206 appearances. I became known by supporters as the Scourge of the Scousers for my knack of scoring against Liverpool. I hold records as the youngest player to take part in a FIFA World Cup, the youngest player to score in a League Cup and an FA Cup final, and the youngest player to score a senior goal for Manchester United. I left United in 89 after a brief time at Everton. Knee injuries forced me to hang up my boots. I don't think a lot of you are going to get that. I'm going to leave that in there while I say, don't forget, you can win an £800 voucher with Boohoo Man. Thank you very much to them. Links in the description or scan that QR code to enter the competition. You've got 2 days to do it. I know who it is because I'm slightly older. But I'm just waiting for somebody in the chat to see if they can get it. Yes, a few of you got it. Of course, it was Norman Whiteside. Well done if you got that. Thank you very much to Boohoo Man. Okay, let's get into the show then. I want to get your opinions on this, and I'm sure we're going to get a few strong ones as well. So, look, it all started off a little bit earlier when it came out from Simon Stone that the suggestion of a short list of replacements for Amorim has been dismissed by Manchester United officials who are adamant that no one is being lined up to replace the current manager. Speculation will continue, which will increase the strain on Amorim, but INEOS are backing the manager. This is coming in from Simon Stone. So I think that it's very interesting, isn't it, that INEOS are adamant that they are backing this manager at this moment. We had stories about Southgate and Iriola and Glasner. Man United are saying that's not the case and they're backing the manager. I suppose the question should be, should they be backing the manager? I saw a little clip from Gary Neville today who was doing the Newcastle game. He was basically saying he's very worried about the manager. I mean, he's never going to say Amorim out and sack the manager. That's just not how it's going to work. I think he said that himself in the interview, but he said, I'm very worried about the manager when you look at his substitutions, his team selections, you know, Mason Mount coming on at left back. It's just shouldn't be happening. So I think the ex-player brigade are about as strong as they can be without saying Amorim has to go. But I think, honestly, it's sort of what I hinted about this morning. And also Fabrizio Romano saying that Xavi wants the job or wants the Man United job. We can talk about that. But we've been here so many times. I find it massively depressing. You know, I find it massively depressing. I have got no loyalty for Ruben Amorim. Who is Ruben Amorim? He's not a Man United ex-player. He's not a legend of the club. He's not somebody who's actually delivered anything. I've got no horse in that game. I honestly don't really care if we sack him or not. It's it's not about that. It's about something far bigger. I mean, he's not doing very well. His decisions are terrible. But I think in relation to why INEOS are backing him, it's for the wrong reasons. Are they waiting till November where they're going to save a few million quid? Are they doing it because it's stubbornness, because they know it's their guy and they look really stupid for doing it? Are they doing it because they know if they sack him, they've basically blown it with the fans who will never trust them again? There could be a multitude of reasons, but ultimately when you're managed by people who aren't very good at their job, it's a dictatorship. And anybody who thinks that we're not subject to a dictatorship at Manchester United is massively, massively naive. Where have you been for 20 years? A handful of people who are from America run our football club. Millions of us love the football club, but a handful of America who don't run the club. The Glazers. The Glazers run this football club. This is a dictatorship. This is not a membership. This is not like a Bundesliga club or Barcelona and Real Madrid. This is not a membership. We do not have one say in what happens to our football club. So, I was saying this about Arsenal earlier. There's Arsenal fans that think if Arteta finishes second again, he'll get the sack. That's a fan theory. Nobody at the club has said if Arteta finishes second, we're going to sack him. It's just what fans think. And many fans think it's time to make a managerial change, and that probably is the right choice, if we're being completely honest, based on what happened yesterday and how we're playing. But it doesn't mean that change will happen yet. This could be a long road. This could be the beginning of the end. I certainly think it will be, but it might take time. It might take all season. It might take till Christmas. It might take till the next international break. They decided not to buy an experienced goalkeeper, and they decided not to buy a midfielder. So why do you think we have an ownership that's going to listen to you about when or when not to sack a manager? The conversation is valid, and people can scream and shout, but I don't think it's going to change anything. They don't listen. They don't listen. When have they listened to you? When has this ownership listened to you? So I don't know when it's going to happen, if it's going to happen, but I certainly think that they are money motivated, and they've spent a lot of money replacing Ten Hag and bringing Ruben Amorim in. And I don't think they want to go and do that again very, very quickly. And also, as Chris Ballman says, why does Omar Barada and Jason Wilcox never get criticised? Well, exactly. They're as culpable as anybody else. So I think where we are tonight is that I don't think it's a vote of confidence. I don't think it's not true. You've got a massive amount of speculation around replacement managers, but you've basically got a club brief saying it's not true, we're backing the manager. So that's where we are tonight. It gets very frustrating. I mean, look, I tend to be quite late on being a manager out, but with Van Gaal, I found it massively frustrating because after every bad result, you hoped that was the end, and then it wasn't the end, and then they'd get a draw and a win, and he'd stay a little bit longer, and it went on for 4 months. My general feeling with Amorim is very consistent to what it's been for a couple of weeks now. I do not want to see a manager sacked. I think it's very, very sad to do that because we're always doing it to the manager. But I do not want to see Bruno Fernandes playing in the midfield, Harry Maguire as the last man, Luke Shaw playing as a left centre-back, Binder in goal. I do not want to see these things. And he keeps doing it. So, who's the bigger fool? The person that says, I'm Amorim in, keep doing it, or the person that says, I've absolutely had enough of what he's doing here, and, something has got to change. I don't want it really to be a managerial change, but I don't really see anything else changing. I mean, you're not going to sell any players anyway. We never do. We're definitely not going to see the change of ownership. So the only thing that can change is the manager, and that's very, very sad. But we can't carry on like this, can we? I mean, all I come back to when I try to find some positivity, because a couple of people have messaged me and saying, you've got to stick your neck on the line, and you've got to back the manager, you've got to stick with the manager. And I'm like, I'm not a bloody idiot. I don't want to see another manager sacked. Personally, I think, it's so repetitive and boring. I don't want to see another manager sacked. But I'm also not stupid. I can see what everyone else can see. We're a bloody shambles. If we'd lost to Newcastle at Newcastle, I'd sort of go, tough start to the season. We've lost to Man City. We've lost to Arsenal. We've lost to Newcastle. They're better than us. They're difficult places to go. We got turned over by Brentford like a bloody pancake. Like Brentford. Respect to Brentford. But I said before the game, respect to Brentford, but these are the games Manchester United should be winning. And we got absolutely battered. And I can't justify it. I can't find a positive in that. I can't. I've had enough of it. I've had enough of United being comprehensively beaten by smaller teams than us, who play better football than us and batter us. I'm so fed up of it. And you know what? I'm going to scream and shout it. Well, I'm not going to scream and shout it, but I am going to say it. I'm fed up of watching Man United get humiliated by teams we should be humiliating, just on size. Respect to Brentford, respect to Bournemouth, respect to Everton, respect to Crystal Palace, respect to Brighton. Well done. You deserve your plaudits when you beat Manchester United. But with all due respect, we're Goliath, they're David. We should be beating them. And they're battering us. They're not, I've seen Man United under Sir Alex lose to Southampton. I've seen them lose to Leeds. I've seen them lose to clubs. Actually, I don't know whether I ever did see us lose to Leeds. Nothing comes to mind. Man City, certainly. Because it can happen. You can have a bad day, but we don't have a bad day. We get humiliated, and it's got to stop. Gary Neville says about he's worried about Amorim. That means he basically thinks Amorim's got to go or he's going to go. But he makes a very good point about when you see Mason Mount coming on at left back, that should never be happening at Manchester United. Do you know why it's happening? Do you know why Mason Mount came on at left back? And do you know why Mbeumo went to right wing back? Because he's got to keep Bruno on. The logical thing is Bruno comes on, Bruno goes off, Mount comes on. But because he won't sub Bruno, you get to this position where he wants to get Mount on, but he can't get Mount on without subbing a sub or subbing Bruno. So you take off a left back to put Mason Mount on the pitch. And you end up with this ridiculous thing where Xerxes comes on, but no, you can't take off Bruno. So it's just... I don't know who's leading who at Manchester United at the moment. I mean, you could argue Bruno Fernandes is the manager because it just seems to be everything around him, as preposterous as that sounds. So anyway, going back to INEOS sticking with the manager, I mean, who do they bloody think they are? That's my point. Well, they're the owners of Manchester United, unfortunately. If we had a membership ownership 50+1 at Manchester United, we wouldn't be in this position. But we are dictated to by a British billionaire and some American billionaires who, let's be honest, don't really know much about football. It's like the blind leading the blind, as Girly Vids just said. But they don't know what they're doing. And I would hazard a guess that what we're actually doing here is preserving face. And what I mean by that is, desperately trying to rescue our reputation in the hope that it turns around. I mean, what we're basically hoping for is that Amorim better start winning. But do you see Manchester United starting to win their next few games? I mean, we've got Sunderland next week at home, which we should win, but we might not. Then we've got Liverpool at Anfield, which we do well to get a draw. Then we've got Brighton at home. And then the last I checked, I think that... the great thing about looking at Man United fixtures is you don't have to skip past European games or Carabao Cup because we're not in it. So it literally is a list of all our games. So yeah, we've got Sunderland at home next week, which you'd expect to win, but we might not. Liverpool away, where you'd expect to lose. Brighton at home, where it's exactly the sort of game they could beat us. Forest away, who probably sort themselves out by then. Spurs away, who are better than us. Everton at home, who you never know what could happen. Then Palace away, who are better than us. So, I mean, I think that I'll be absolutely surprised if on December the 1st, Amorim's still here. When I look at Palace away, Everton at home, Spurs away, Forest away, Liverpool away, Brighton at home and Sunderland away, I don't see 5 wins. I see 5 losses. I don't see 5 wins. And then, I mean, look, how long can this go on? Well, we finished 15th last year, but I think the sooner we get in the relegation zone, the sooner it'll be gone. And relegation zone doesn't look as stupid as it might have sounded in the past because it's a very competitive Premier League. I mean, we are literally 3 points off Burnley, who are in the bottom 3. So, yeah, things could get bad very, very quickly. I would say, though, when you look at the league table, we're 14th with 7 points. They're probably saying a couple of wins and we're second. That's if everybody stands still and goes to sleep, which they won't. It is very congested from 14th to second. It's literally 6 points, but you know what? That's only because we're at the start of the season. That's only because of that. Mike JW says we won't win the next 3 games. So the question is, what will these clowns do then? Before the match, Amorim said how Brentford would score, and they did, says Keel Robinson. Irfan says, INEOS don't want to repeat last October by sacking him because it will be bad PR for them. So they want to keep him till the summer at least. Yeah, I mean, that's basically what Simon Stone was saying, wasn't it? But you can't run a football club like that. You can't run a football club on your own ego. Well, you can, but it doesn't go well. This back the manager argument is the most boring argument ever. I'm Amorim out, but I'd rather him fixing his mistakes than as getting a new manager, says Shahin. I think Glazers would sack him, but Sir Jim said no, says Ryan. I don't know if you noticed, but players too often pass to Bruno instead of players ahead like Cunha and Mbeumo. It's like the team is too dependent on him, says Dragon Guide. If relegated, what would we do, says Eggy. I think we're a long way off that. Connor says, the worst thing with the manager is the way he refuses to watch the opposition's corners. Watch the damn game, Amorim. This is data you need to react to, says Connor. Baz Amerio says, it's stupid keeping him. He keeps playing the same tactics, the same players in the same positions. It's not going to work. He's an idiot. Plus, he watches the ground more than the game. He needs to go. Max says, I've said for years nothing will change until the Glazers go. INEOS belong to the Glazers. Philosophy is to sell out and the culture needs to change, says Mac. Amorim or Xavi, who would you take, Mark? I knew somebody was going to ask me that. I'll come back to that. What are you expecting from the January window? I mean, asking me about the January window is like asking a turkey about December the 27th. It's absolutely irrelevant, mate, in relation to what's happening right in front of us. Emily Derry says, INEOS were a plaster over a gaping wound, there to get the Glazers over the line until the development plans are a dead cert. Why would we expect anything different when it comes to problems on the pitch? Dan O'Connell says, win rate 27% gets you sacked in any elite club. I like Amorim, but it's not working. Issue is, who do you get? Current faves are worrying. I think this is a good point from Dan, because some people would say you've been Amorim in for so long. Well, I have, but you know what? I don't owe an opinion to any of you. I owe an opinion to myself, to be true to myself, like all of you do. What's changed with me is I just cannot see a way out. I can't see a way out. And that doesn't mean I want the manager to be sacked. What I'm saying is I don't see it getting any better. I don't see it getting any better with a new manager either, by the way. So I'm not one of those people who wants a shiny new toy. I'm actually sat here wallowing in reality of I don't think it's going to get better in any way, shape or form. What that means is under Amorim or a new manager, I don't see it getting better, because better to me is Man United competing in the Champions League, in the Premier League for trophies. I don't see us doing that. I don't see in any way, shape or form, like I say, I don't see a strategy, plan or potential for that to happen. I don't see the players. I don't see the future. I don't see the finances. I don't see the leadership. I don't see responsibility. I don't see people, you know, I saw Bruno Guimaraes playing for Newcastle today. He makes a tackle and he's going, get into the crowd and stuff like that. And I'm like, we just have none of that. Everybody's so up their own arse. They're not interested in the club. They're not interested in the fans. Everybody's fighting for themselves. That's why when Bruno misplaces a pass, it's everybody else's fault, because he's focused on his own brand. He's focused on his own performance. He's not interested in anybody else. And that runs through the whole team as well. I saw the bench at 3-1 yesterday. You've got Luke Shaw and Harry Maguire just staring into space. There's no bloody leadership at that football club at all. You know, Ruben Amorim staring at the ground. Harry Maguire and Luke Shaw are staring into space. Bruno Fernandes is blaming the corner flag. There's just no accountability. There's no leadership. Nobody's standing up and, you know, taking responsibility. And I don't think that changes just because, you know, the next Amorim or the next Ten Hag comes into the football club. But bringing it back to Amorim, like, I think where I was probably at the start of the season was if we can get a really good midfielder and a really good goalkeeper, maybe we could get 5th place. We didn't get a midfielder and we didn't get a goalkeeper. So we fall into this area of between 6th and 10th for me, and maybe that's optimistic. But what Ruben Amorim absolutely had to do this season, after having had a pre-season and a bit of a transfer window, was show progress. He had to show progress. I see no progress. I'm massively disappointed. I'm massively sad about this, but I see no progress and I see no development. And the reason for that is very, very clear. We beat Chelsea, but they had 10 men for most of the game. We beat Burnley, but we needed a late penalty. That's our 2 wins this season. 10 men, late penalty. Brentford battered us. I don't see anything different from last season. I don't see anything different from Leon being a great night where we, you know, rescued something late on. or, you know, Europa League final against Spurs, get out of jail card, and people don't turn up. I just don't see any development. And if INEOS are telling me we're sticking with Amorim because we believe things are going to get better, then please show me why. You know what? If somebody said to me, we're going to lose to Sunderland, we're going to lose to Liverpool, but we're going to win the next 12 games in a row, I'd say, right, I'll fight for that. Is that guaranteed? Yeah, right, I'll fight for that. I don't see that. There's so many teams better than us. I think even if our players put a shift in, they're not good enough. I said this to somebody today. I said, even if all our players played well, I still don't think they're better than some of the other teams in the league. Even if, and they don't do it. They don't play well every week. But even if they did, I don't think they're good enough. That's the scary thing. Everything I hear, it is a shit show in the boardroom. Whoever is in charge will never be able to do anything until they sort that out, says Man UFC. Could just imagine Xavi explaining positional play and tiki-taka to Maguire, says Mark. Okay, let me talk about that because I did get asked that question. So basically what Fabrizio Romano has said today is that the Gareth Southgate links are only happening because he's appreciated by Sir Jim Radcliffe and INEOS. There's no active conversations or talks for Southgate to become the new manager. He could be an option if Amorim is sacked, but he will not be the only option. In relation to Xavi, he is studying and monitoring the Premier League and would join Manchester United immediately without European football. He would love the Premier League opportunity, and that's from Fabrizio. So look, Xavi would take the Manchester United job. Would I take Xavi over Amorim? That's not really the question. If the club are going to stick with Amorim, you know, let's pray for a miracle. It's the best case scenario that Amorim turns it around. Do I think he's going to turn it around? No. Do I hope he turns it around? Yes. If they sack Amorim and it's been done, would I take Xavi over Gareth Southgate? Yes. Would I take Xavi over Glasner? Yes. Stylistically, I think he's better on the eye. Would I take Xavi over Iriola? Well, that's a great conversation because I'm not so sure I would do that. But the problem with Xavi is that he's a lamb to the slaughter to this club. I think he'd be 6 months and they'd be out for him. I think the next manager's got 6 months, basically, and he'll be gone. If you're sacking a manager after 9 months or 11 months or whatever it is, the next manager doesn't get to... I mean, like, at least Mourinho got 2.5 years. At least Ollie got 3 years. At least Ten Hag got 2 and a bit years. Amorim's not even had a year. I don't think he deserves a year based on... Can I just say as well that I am not saying that we need to give Amorim 2 years. The writing's on the wall. I agree with you. Like, nobody should get 2 years just because you should get 2 years. Like, he doesn't deserve a second year at the moment. I can see that as somebody that doesn't want him to get sacked. He doesn't deserve it just because we've only given him a year. What I'm saying is, if he gets the sack in a year, the next manager, it draws a... What it does is it psychologically draws that line that, well, we've sacked a manager after a year, we can do it with another one. And it becomes harder and harder and harder and harder and harder. Basically, what Xavi would need to do is get instantaneous results to be given the patience to rebuild it. Now, at Barcelona, he had a financial crisis and he won the league. And then in the next year, it didn't go so well and they wanted him gone. Stylistically, it's a 4-3-3, it's possession. But there are question marks. You speak to Barcelona fans, some people think he did a really good job and was a bit unlucky. Some people think they've seen with Flick a far better manager and they're glad he got the sack. So it's one of those, isn't it? But my overarching feeling is Xavi, Iriola, Pochettino, Nagelsmann, whoever you want to bring in, I still think we'll be back here again in the space of 2.5 years, maybe sooner. I'm absolutely convinced there's no way back no matter what. Because what do you want from Manchester United? That's the question you have to ask as an individual. Nobody can answer this question for you. What do you want as a Manchester United fan? What would make you happy as a Man United fan? And I'm talking about, what do Man United have to do every season to make you happy realistically? I can't give you the league every year. You know, we nearly had that every year for a long time. We were blessed. But what would make you content as a Man United fan? For me, I want to be in the Champions League every year because that's where we should be. And I want to be in the top 3 every year. I want to be competing every year in the top 3 and in the Champions League. That's what I want. I'm not getting that. This club is not set up to do that. And that's really scary. So when you say, let's change the manager, okay, let's do it. But they won't do what I want. They won't achieve what I want. We're Manchester. I mean, JR says top 5. We're Manchester United, mate. We're one of the best supported football clubs in the world. We're hugely profitable. It's only because we're in debt that we have these issues. As a standalone entity, before the Glazers came in, we were the dog's bollocks. We were winning things. We were probably the most commercially viable club in the world. We were massively wealthy. We were the dog's bollocks. People were terrified of Man United dominating football for decades. So much so that Murdoch tried to buy Man United and it was not allowed by the Premier League. Sky basically tried to buy Man United and the Premier League said no because it's a monopoly. But they were okay with this being bought on borrowed debt. So we're massive. And people are going, I'd take top 5 consistently. I look at Liverpool, I look at Arsenal, that's where we should be. That is where we should be. Top 3 every year and in the Champions League. I don't think that's achievable for any manager. Because even if a Xavi comes in and makes us better, you need, like Xavi gets us playing good football, yeah? Where are the players to bypass an Arsenal or a Liverpool or a Chelsea or a Man City? Where are the players to do that? You cannot polish a turd. He might make us able to beat Brentford and Sunderland and Crystal Palace and Everton, and he might take us to like 6th or maybe even 5th. But he's never going to take us into the top 3 because we just do not have the setup above to do it, and we're not going to have the financial setup to do it. So I don't think anything massively changes for Manchester United, regardless of what we do with the manager. But, as I say, if Amorim was to go, would I like Xavi? Yes. I think that when you look at modern football, Arne Slot, Jurgen Klopp, Pep Guardiola, there's quite a distinctive connection there between a certain brand of football. They're all possession-based coaches. That they're all very relentless on, pressure, chance creation. They're all very focused on midfields as well. If you look at you look at Klopp, especially the midfield he left at the club. You look at Slot, very, very, very focused down the middle. Pep, obviously very, very focused down the middle. We're the opposite of that at the moment with Amorim. He seems to, dismiss the midfield. So, I see the positives of a Xavi, but I don't. Look, if you said to me, Amorim's been sacked and Xavi's coming in, what do you think? I'd say, I think in 12 months' time he might be sacked himself. I don't have any confidence anymore that this is going to turn around. There's no interview that Barada could do about the next manager that's going to make me believe in it, because he's done about 6 in the last 12 months about how, Project 28, One thing everyone overlooks is we need a big personality at United, not necessarily a great coach. Xavi can move things forward, to Shahin. What we desperately need is we need some personality at the football club. I mean, I watched the Newcastle Arsenal game today, and I just saw a lot of personality on the pitch. Timber, Rice, Subamendi, Bruno G, Joel Linton, Tonali, Voltemeda, Gyökeres. They're all fighting each other. It's like, I just don't see that at United. I feel like United fight each other. I don't feel a warm feeling towards Man United. I do the club, but the players, I'm sure if you're a Newcastle fan and you see Joel Linton flying into a tackle and, you feel like he's one of you. And I think, Arsenal fans probably see that with Declan Rice, and Liverpool with Alexi McAllister and Gravenberch and Salah. They probably see in the players things that they as fans, identify with. I mean, look, we're the original gangsters on that. Roy Keane in your team, Gary Neville in your team, David Beckham in your team, Ryan Giggs, Paul Scholes, Eric Cantona, Cristiano Ronaldo, Wayne Rooney, Patrice Evra. You bloody felt, you watched them play and you felt like they were you, that you felt like they got it. You felt like, if they lost fine, because you knew they got what it was all about. You can't win every single game, but you know what? You'd be disappointed, but they'd be disappointed, and then they'd go and win, and you'd win together. I look at this United side, and this has been going on for years, by the way. This is not even relevant to yesterday. I remember that game where Solskjaer had just been given the job, and they went to Goodison Park and got absolutely stuffed. And I was like, you can't trust these wankers. I think I actually said that. I'm not saying it now. I'm saying I said it at the time. But I watched United yesterday against Brentford, and I'm looking for a reaction. Nothing happened. One of you said it in the watch-along. It was like 20 minutes to go, and it was like, since they scored after 10 minutes, nothing's happened. Nobody's actually grabbed the game by the scruff of the neck and said, let's change this game. In fact, you watch Man United, and all you ever see is somebody going at themselves, oh, what am I doing? Or somebody else, what are you doing? Like this, they're battling each other. They're not battling the opposition, they're battling each other. They've got their own inner demons going on, and they've got their own disdain for each other going on. There's no camaraderie. If I could buy one player and bring them into Manchester United right now, would probably be the best captain money can buy. Like the best. I mean, I'd love a Roy Keane or a Steven Gerrard or a John Terry. You know, I'd love a Brian Robson. I would love a captain to come into that team who's the best player on our team and just change everything that's going on. Because some people need to be led in life. Some people work and perform better when being led. And we might have 4 or 5 players in that squad that will perform better if they are led. We don't have a leader to follow. So, yeah. But I don't know. I don't know why we've never looked at that. Gattuso would be very good as well. Bruno Guimaraes would be very good. I don't know why we've not looked at that. Probably because we think we've got one already. Maybe we think we've got that guy already. Yeah. I would love to see some fire and passion from top to bottom, a desire to be better, and we don't have that, says Mike. Champions League, Amorim can't even beat Grimsby, says Parker. We're all tired, but there's always a way back, says Shahin. But look, look, we've got time. It's still like 20 to 9. I don't have all the answers. That's the brilliant thing about this community. We've been doing this for a long time. I have opinions, but I don't have answers. And I've said to you, help me. Help me. I said it this morning. I was like, help me, help me. I've been talking at you for years, with you for years, asking you for years. Every time we've made a managerial change, I felt a little bit positive, a lot positive, excited. I don't feel that anymore. Honestly, I don't feel that anymore. I don't feel that when and if Amorim gets sacked and the new manager comes in, I don't feel like I'll go, we're back. This is the start of something. And that's just because, you know, you've been let down so many times that it's like the bloke who keeps going on a date and asking this person out, and they say, yeah, let's do it, and they never turn up. 7th time you turn up to the restaurant, you're sort of like, they're not going to turn up, are they? And I feel like that. I feel like I just do not trust that a change of manager is going to change our future anymore. I don't see a way back. And as I've said to you before, harsh life lesson, we all want to believe in life there's a happy ending, but sometimes there isn't. Sometimes there's not a happy ending. Sometimes there's injustice. Sometimes there's just not. It doesn't change, it gets worse. And so I would throw it to you, Shahin. Instead of saying there's always a way back, there is always a way back. Do you know what I think the way back is? Removal of the ownership, proper ownership like Liverpool have, like Arsenal have, like Chelsea have, like Man City have. And when I say proper ownership, an ownership that's focused on success on the pitch. Not this multi-bullshit approach of, yeah, we want to be successful on the pitch, but we also want to build a massive, massive regeneration project that's going to make us already rich people even richer. I mean, let's be honest. All the Glazers and Sir Jim are really bothered about is regenerating the area around Old Trafford so rich people can get richer. That's what they're really bothered about. I want owners that don't give a shit about that. They want Man United to be good on the pitch. And that's the only way back, I think. But I'd love to know what the way back is with the reality of the Glazers and INEOS going nowhere. So if somebody can tell me that way back, I am happy to discuss that and see if I think I can get on board with it. Xavi just as much as a roll of the dice as Amorim. I think 1 inch wonder. Who isn't a roll of the dice? The only person who's not a roll of the dice is Southgate. I mean, that's basically shitting in your hands and rubbing it around your face. But everybody's going to be a roll of the dice. Any good manager's going to be a roll of the dice. No one can tell me that, Ranić's not a good manager. Look at what happened to him. No one can tell me that Ten Hag's not a good manager. Look at what happened to him. And no one can tell me that Amorim's not a good manager. Might be a terrible fit, but he's a good manager. Xavi is the manager. Get him in the midfield, says Liam. Do you think we'll beat Sunderland this weekend, says Daz? Honestly, possibly, maybe not. It's a flip of a coin. I mean, look, let's not forget we can beat anybody on the day. We played well against Arsenal. We should have been 4-0 up against Burnley at half-time. On our day, we can beat anybody. It's whether we turn up or not. We didn't turn up against Brentford. I thought we would win that game, but we didn't turn up. So maybe we'll turn up against Sunderland. Maybe we'll turn up and they'll be better than us anyway. I don't know. But if he picks Binder in goal and puts Maguire as the last man and Luke Shaw next to him and Bruno in the midfield, I think you're making it a lot harder. I mean, look, you know what? I don't think Amorim watches the United stand. I don't think he listens to any of us. But if he wants to try and survive, put Lemens in goal, play Yoro, De Ligt and Heaven at the back, or maybe put Maguire next to De Ligt on the left-hand side because he did it for England. Play Mainu and Agate in the midfield, or Agate and Casemiro in the midfield, and either drop Cunha or Bruno. Give it a go. But I don't think he'd do that, do you? I don't like that Amorim doesn't utilise the youth. United's identity is the use of our youth. I don't see any of them making their first team. I don't really... Can I just say, Atta, I often agree with people. I couldn't give a shit about the youth at the moment. I genuinely am not bothered about that. Amorim doesn't utilise the youth. I couldn't give a shit about that at the moment. We are losing to Brentford. We're getting absolutely battered. I couldn't think of anything worse than sticking in a 17, 18-year-old prospect and destroying them. I don't care about him not using the youth at the moment. I don't think now is the time to be throwing young players in. What I do care about is who he puts in the midfield, who he puts in goal. The youth can wait at the moment. I don't want to see young players thrown into this. There's a time and a place. Jamie M says, has managed 32 Premier League games with 32 points. It's 6 more games to make it a full season. That's not good enough, says Amorim out. Sorry, Jamie says. Well, at least with 34 points from 32 games, you'd probably stay up. We're going backwards, not forwards, says Sean. Yes. Keel Robinson says, I know you say we shouldn't go back, but it feels like we have to go back to Ollie as interim, tread water until suited manager. Oh, mate. I mean, I'd take Ollie over Southgate, but why do we have to go back? Why do we have to go back? It's like I had a mate a few years ago who's like in a relationship, and he was like, remember such and such from school? And I went, yeah. I know where we're going. He goes, yeah, well, we've started having a chat, and she wants to meet for a drink. And I said, you do realise we're like in our late 30s now, and you're talking about somebody that, was 16. When you were 16, you weren't in your late 30s. You're not a nonce. You were both 16. He was like, oh, I know, but I really liked her. And I said, have you seen any pictures? And he went, well, she's posted a few on Facebook. And I said, right, get her to go and buy a paper with today's date on it and send that for a start. And also, what are you going back for anyway? Leave the past in the past. What are you going back for? Nostalgia. Don't go back. Don't go back. Look, we went back with Ronaldo. Was it worth it? One of the greatest players we've ever had. Was it worth doing that for Ronaldo? Look how that went. Do you think Bruno shows leadership only on Instagram, but on the pitch he's quick to blame others? On the pitch is where leadership matters, says Shrigit. As I said last night, like, we can joke about Bruno. Like, let's all do lines about Bruno. Like, I did one last night. If Bruno kicked someone up the arse, he'd and the person said who did that, he'd blame it on the bloke with no legs. Like, Bruno blames everybody but himself. What I think is really worrying, though, is that, going back to what was said about the youth there, in a way we already have got youth. Kobbie Mainoo is 20, Dorgu is 20, Yoro is, what, 19 or 20? That's youth. That's youth. So Bruno is a barrier to Mainu getting game time. Bruno slated Yoro after the Manchester derby, and Yoro hasn't started a game since. Dorgu got dropped so Delo could play at left wing back. So we're not doing a great job in relation to our youth. You know, Luke Shaw's been crap all season, plays every bloody game. It seems to me that if you're an experienced player, you can have as many crap games as you like, and you can have as many excuses as you like. But if you're a young player, one strike and you're out. Or it's not even your fault and you're out, you know? What baffles me about Amorim is his starting lineup. He's an intelligent man, says Fowler. Why isn't he starting the right players? If the fans know, why won't he? Unless, and this is a pure conspiracy, he's doing it on purpose. You know, I think Amorim, if it ever came out that this was true, I actually think he'd be a legend. Imagine if he just doesn't want the job anymore. Imagine if it's such a mess. Look, if I'm sitting here saying there's no way back for Man United, I can only respect a manager that says the same, who knows more than I do. What if Amorim's sort of like, I don't want to burn these kids because it's not fair. I'm picking the experienced players because they can fucking deal with it. What if Amorim's like, I can't turn this ship around. I'm just going through the motions until they sack me. I mean, it sounds far-fetched, but so's playing Bruno in the midfield every week. Jamie says nonsense. Of course it's nonsense, but, you know, it's such a bloody mess. These conspiracy theories will thrive. What is Amorim supposed to do? He still has players from Van Gaal, and every player he has a different identity of football. For this to work, time is key, says Sean. Answering that question as to whether Amorim can turn the ship around, how do you turn the ship around when you haven't got a steering wheel? Like, if INEOS had given him an experienced goalkeeper and a midfielder, you could argue that that's two things that help us at least make some progress this season. All I see is a £200 million strike force that we can't get the ball to because we didn't buy a midfielder and we've got a shit goalkeeper. So I don't even know, you know, people say give him time. To do what? Well, what's he actually going to do with what he's got? I don't know what he's going to do with what he's got. The midfield's going to be a massive problem all season. The goalkeeper's going to be a massive problem all season. He's not going to not stop picking Bruno. So I don't really know what he's supposed... I'd love to sit here and go, give him time, give him time. We're back in 1989. You know, I'd love to say, let's give him time. I can see where we're going to go. But honestly, I want it to work. I don't want another manager. I really don't. I'm not excited about another manager at all. I want it to work. But honestly, how is this going to work? Like, what is going to change to make it work? It's not like we've got an amazing midfielder who's coming back from injury. It's not like we've got a goalkeeper that's just having a bad time but really is a worldie. It's not like there's a place at number 10 for Bruno to go back to number 10. I don't see it. The only player we've got coming back is Martinez. And he might not stay fit anyway. And I don't think he's actually going to solve everything. So I don't even know what the way back is. I don't even think Amorim wants a way back at the moment. You know? Getting a new manager will temporarily fix the problem, and will we all be back here in 12 months, as Ghost92, debating whether the next manager should be sacked. That's my fear, certainly. Kia says, that was from Ghost92. Kia says, Amorim didn't succeed with Sporting because Portuguese league is easier, but because his players were willing to turn up, unlike our players. Kia, it doesn't matter whether it's the Bundesliga, the Portuguese league, the Championship, your local pub league. If you've got players that want to play as part of a team, you'll be okay. If you've got players that, you know, want to turn up every now and again, you're going to struggle because you never know what's going to happen. And you can't plan on that. You can't plan on that. At least the club have come out and said not sacking. If they didn't, we would all be guessing and saying, why not just say keep him or sack him, says Rory. Eddie Mack says, Mark, backing Amorim is all to save face. Inept senior players, inept ownership. If you were in charge tomorrow, what formation would you use? You know Goldbridge ball. You know whatever your ball is. My principle when I play Football Manager, Championship Manager, when I was From the age of bloody picking up a Sega Mega Drive and playing Italia 90, I've never, ever played a back five or a back three or a 3-4-3 or a 4-2-1-2. I've always been different types of 4-3-3. Always. That's the way I would play. But I'm not going to be a hypocrite. I said when we got Ruben Amorim, he will play a 3-4-3. And I said it's massively brave of the club to do that, but it means we're going to spend a lot of money because we don't have a team to play that. So, you know, I was very excited about Amorim coming in. I don't want United to play with a back three. I want us to play with a back four, but or a back five as it often happens to be. But if you're going to make that change, then you've got to make a huge amount of change very, very quickly. If you have a Chinese restaurant and you recruit an Indian chef who specialises in Indian food, you can't keep buying ingredients for Chinese food. You've got to get you've got to get rid of that as quick as you can, and you've got to bring as many Indian ingredients in as quick as you can. And there's other analogies that work like that as well. You know, I just thought of one that was totally inappropriate. Basically, if you're running a pawn shop and then you recruit somebody who, I better not say it. But, you know, it's chalk and cheese. It's chalk and cheese. And one thing that's abundantly clear, and it doesn't detract from the fact that Amorim picks the team, but what is abundantly clear is when INEOS decided to go with Amorim, this was a huge monumental shift in what this club's all about and always has been about. And it's totally contrary to what this squad is. I mean, if I was looking at Ten Hag, if somebody said to me when Ten Hag got sacked, what's the best manager we can go for in this shortest period of time? Well, like, what does this squad actually suit? And remember, when they sacked Ten Hag, we weren't a mile off top five. I can't remember how many points we were off top five when Amorim got sacked. If anybody has that data, let us know. So if I'd have been in charge when they sacked Ten Hag and somebody said to me, let's get the most suitable manager for this squad now to get us back into Europe. And I think somebody just said we were 5 points off. Or 4 points off. So looking at that Man United squad, I would say a year ago when they sacked Ten Hag, the most suitable manager, if you don't want to buy a lot of players. Oh God, I keep getting a really tickly throat. Probably Thomas Frank. Yeah, someone like Thomas Frank. I'm talking about the team last year when it didn't have Cunha and Burmo and Sesko, and we're talking about the likes of, you know, Rashford, Garnacho, Anthony, Rasmus. I would say that someone like Thomas Frank would have been the right guy because that squad doesn't like possession. It likes to counter-attack. It likes to sit and counter. So someone like Thomas Frank would have been ideal for Man United a year ago with the squad they've got. I didn't want Thomas Frank. I don't like that squad. So when they gave the job to Amorim, I was like excited because I was like, this team does not suit Ruben Amorim. This squad couldn't be further from a Ruben Amorim squad if you tried. So we're obviously going to have a massive clear out and a massive recruitment drive. And we've done neither, really. So I think that's always something to take away from this, is that when we gave Amorim the job, you couldn't have given the manager, you couldn't have given a worst example of completely the opposite of what the squad is. Amorim is not a Man United manager for that squad. So I thought we were going to spend a load of money and sell a load of players, and we didn't. Screw it, get Sean Dyche in, says Jack. Potter sacked with a better win percentage, says Siraj. So we get a new manager, and then what, says Spy Goal. Do you reckon this squad would come straight back up if we got relegated, says Jason. Stop talking about relegation. Paul O'Brien says, finally on Sky Sports earlier, it was said, why are Berrada and Wilcox not getting criticised? Amorim is a dead man walking to the gallows. 4 points off fourth. Come on, early doors yet. Relax, says Alan. We won't win the next 3 games, so the question is, what will these clowns do then, says Mike. look, one thing is true at Manchester United. When it all goes wrong, everybody above the manager runs away, and everybody below the manager runs away. And the only person left staring at the firing line is the manager. But, you know, silence is golden, as they once sang. And if you don't speak, you're not heard. When was the last time Omar Barad did an interview? When was the last time Jason Wilcox did an interview? They don't say anything, so you don't think about them. But the CEO and the sporting director of a football club are huge cogs in the wheel of success and failure. And I'm sure they would be doing interviews if we were top of the league. But when things go wrong, we never hear from them. So, absolutely, why is Jason Wilcox a good sporting director? Why is Omar Barada a good CEO? I'm asking the question. Or are they bad? I remember INEOS coming in and saying they wanted football specialists or something like that. Best in class. They ain't best in class. They ain't best in class. Nosk says, Amorim said it himself. He won't change his philosophy. If he wants a change, we have to change the man. After losing to City, I thought he would be humble and respectful, but he seems ignorant and happy with his pay. Jack Davies says, we had 2 missed penalties and a goalkeeper howler off third. What happened to judging after 10 games? Every loss we go nuts. Villa, Toon, Forest, all are struggling early. Jack. What you're saying is really good. But what you're also saying is not real life, right? What you're doing is you are quoting something I said a few times. We've got to give Amorim 10 games because I think by game 10, we'll have settled down. The league will have settled down. And as long as we're within 5 points of 5th, I think things will get better. And that is a great point, Jack. And I did say it. But evidence changes opinion. If I say, Jack, get in the car, there's other people there, don't worry. And we're going to Cornwall. And we're going to go down this road, right? And then when we're going down the road, there's a load of alerts about traffic jams and this, that, and the other. And I turn off and you go to me, you said we were going to use this road. And I say, Jack, my intention was to use that road, but look at all the trouble there. We're changing course. And that's where I am, Jack. I really hope that Amorim gets to 10 games and things get better. But where we are at the moment, Satnav says turn away. Because you can't lose to Brentford like that. When I said let's give it 10 games, I wasn't factoring in losing to Brentford. What I was doing was saying in our first 8 games, we're playing the top 4. So I expected a few losses. What I was saying is we're going to have a bit of a roller coaster. And I expected us to struggle against the top 4. I didn't expect us to get annihilated by Brentford. And when I say annihilated, we lost 3-1, but it should have been 5. So that's why, Jack, I'm saying all this bollocks about 10 games and that. People can change their opinion when things they didn't anticipate happen. There's no excuse for yesterday is what I'm trying to say. Grimsby as well is probably, you know, I don't really care about Grimsby, actually. Anana was fucking awful that night. And although we still should have won the game, that was abysmal. But, you know, you could throw Grimsby as well into that. Rainfall says, I've not heard anyone say this, but can we look at the profile of midfielder we publicly went after last summer? Are we saying Belabor is the profile to provide our attack while plugging the hole? I don't think Belabor would have solved massive problems at United. Because Bruno would be playing next to him. I've said that. Amorim is picking the best of a bad bunch players, says Daniel. I disagree, but some might agree with you there. Reality is owners will stay, so what do we do now? The only change for me is the change of ownership, and it's not going to happen. Keel Robinson says, how about Carrick? I don't think it will lead to any major change. I don't look, as I said, show me the pathway. I'll give you my opinion. Xavi, Carrick, Ollie, Southgate, Glasner. I think we'll be back here in a year or 2. All I see for United over the next decade is this every 2 or 3 years. This feeling repackaged every 2 or 3 years. I'm tired of doing the New Year's Eve show or the Christmas Day showing saying, hopefully this time next year we'll be in a better position, and then we're in a worse position. I just don't see a way back. I just don't see a way back anymore because of how the club is run. And I'm sorry, but I'd love to be proved right. But I just, sometimes, you know that brown thing on the floor that smells like shit, looks like shit, and dare I say, tastes like shit? Don't taste it. It is shit. You don't need to taste it. And I feel like that about Man United. We look like shit. We play like shit. We are shit. And you know, if Man United are a big festering pile of shit, how do you change that? Does changing the manager stop us being a pestering, festering, steamy shit? No. I think the only thing that changes it is clearing the shit up, disinfecting it, resetting it, and starting again. And the only way to do that is to, what controls Man United? The owners. It's the only thing that will change it for me. The manager doesn't control the budget. The manager doesn't decide who is sold and bought. This needs to change at the very top. Amorim's been fed broken promises, says Daz, and he's probably thrown in the towel. Now he's just waiting for the inevitable. I do think whenever the truth comes out about Amorim, it will be very interesting reading, by the way. Absolutely convinced there is stuff going on that we don't know. Would you swap the Man United squad for Crystal Palace? I don't really know enough about the Crystal Palace squad, Arta, if I'm being honest. Amorim's style of football is absolutely terrible since Sporting. He's always been a sit-back, counter-attack manager. He's never been possession-based. He's the equivalent of a Portuguese Southgate, says Default 66. Well, he's definitely not the equivalent of that, mate, because I've seen Sporting play numerous times and he never played like fucking Southgate. We beat Sunderland and majority beat Amorim in, says John. I don't think they will. I don't think you give enough credit to the fan base. I don't think they would be, honestly. No. I don't think beating Sunderland will turn this ship around. Beating Chelsea didn't turn it around, so I don't think it will. Not unless he does something that's transformative. If he beats Sunderland by playing two proper midfielders, a proper goalkeeper, a proper defence, and we play really, really well, it might do. But if he beats Sunderland with, let's say, Bruno in the midfield and co, I don't think it will. I'm taking my son on Saturday for his 8th birthday and trying to stay positive. He'll be devastated if we lose. Simon, you've absolutely picked the perfect game for your son's first game at Man United. I looked at it in the summer and we were meant to be going. We picked another game instead, but I looked at that Sunderland game and went, "That's a brilliant game. That's a definite win." Fingers crossed, Simon. You should rewatch Cunha's interview. He's calling out Bruno slyly. I sense a dressing room unrest and things could get worse, says English Saturn. Tom says we won a few games under Ollie. That's all I want now. And Who to Blame says Amorim can turn it around if he started sharing behind the scenes of what happened in the transfer window and started shining his light on the owners. They'd sack him. We need two proper midfielders like Roy and Paul, or Carrick and Paul, not a bloody number 10, says Rudy. And Nectario says, you're right about your comment about players we relate to. Martinez is the only one with brass balls. And Amano says, the next manager must be Premier League proven. We can't afford to bring in another foreign coach who is learning on their feet. Yeah, you do get swallowed up. I mean, I suspect that, I think you're a good, I would say this actually. I don't think Xavi will get anywhere near a Man United job. I think Ten Hag, foreign coach, Amorim, foreign coach. Just for that reason, I don't think they'll go for a foreign coach, which means no Xavi. I think they'll go Premier League proven, which obviously brings Knobhead back into the equation. Look, by the way, Southgate hasn't managed in the Premier League since 2009. He's not Premier League proven. So Southgate may as well, I'd take Xavi over Southgate anyway, but Xavi's got more domestic football experience than he has. So I don't genuinely think they know where to go next either. And that can happen at Man United. Like Brighton probably know their next manager already. Man United don't always know their next manager. It's happened before. It happened after Mourinho. They didn't have a fucking clue. It happened after Ollie. They didn't have a fucking clue. So they might not even have a clue who they want. Thanks everyone for watching. Don't forget to check out Boohoo Man. You can get the £800 voucher. That will be drawn in a couple of days. So make sure you enter through the link in the video description or the QR code. Thanks everyone for tuning in tonight. As always, you've been absolutely fantastic. We should be sponsored by Andrex, papering over the cracks. Or Polyfiller Brink. They fill cracks. Again, I had a very bad thought. I can't say that one either. I've got to be very careful about what I say these days. I mean, it's a great joke. If it was a live show, I would have said, we should be sponsored by such and such, because he loves filling cracks. But you can't do that. You can't do that. INEOS are the worst owners. They think it's okay for us to be this bad. A manager can't win 2 games in a month. Even my grandma can coach better than him, says Gakina. Should have got Rabiot, says Keel. Adil says, you missed my message. I just wonder, when does our brand fade out? When do we stop being the most supported club in the world? When do we become Villa or Palace? It's terrifying if you ask me, says Adil. Chelsea fans in the chat suggesting Ollie, says Keystone. I think the Man United brand will die on how I feel at the moment. Apathetic. You're always going to... Look, somebody said to me, I loved what you said. I'll never stop loving Manchester United, but I hate what we've become. And I think that's true. You can hate what we've become, but love the club. The club to me is bigger than players and managers and owners. The club to me is what was passed to me by my granddad. You know, I love the football club. I love what Manchester United means to me. But that Man United doesn't exist anymore. So people will just lose interest. That's what will happen. People will lose interest. And I will never stop watching Manchester United. I'll never stop doing these shows and stuff like that because I enjoy football and Man United's my football club. But I'm already at the point where I don't see a way back. And that's a problem. When the fans believe there's no way back and we just really are staring at obscurity. When fans don't believe anymore, they won't spend anymore. And that becomes a problem. People buy the third kit because they like it. And it reminds them. Those kits remind me of better times and better times to come. When you've got no interest in that, you're not willing to spend 100 quid on it, are you? That's the problem. That's what INEOS are doing to this club with the Glazers. Take care, everyone. Stay safe. I'll speak to you tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. I would fasten your seatbelts tomorrow when you get up, because if you're getting in a car, you should be fastening your seatbelt anyway. But I'd fasten your seatbelts tomorrow. Pratthurst, Athletic, they're all going to be at it. The big story tomorrow. They've been off today. It's the weekend. Tomorrow, they're all back at work. Get ready for the leaks. Get ready for the stories. It will be mad tomorrow. And for the start of the week. Take care, everyone. I'll speak to you all in a bit.